Hello, you wonderful people. So today is Halloween, or it will be by the time this video goes up. So I wanted to talk about 5 supernatural shows that I like, that I'm kind of like recommending that you should check out. First up on the list is the TV show Haven. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Haven is, basically an FBI agent named Audrey Parker comes to this small town known as Haven, where the people there are plagued with this affliction / abilities known as trouble. Basically, they're like supernatural abilities that some people can control, but more often than not, it's just like their abilities that are just kind of like more like curses that just activate on their own. And so it's kind of like this big supernatural mystery to try to figure out what Haven's whole deal is. It's a great show. Obviously it ended like a couple years ago, but if you wanted to check it out, all of it's on Netflix. At least to my knowledge, it's still on Netflix. Yeah, it's a very awesome mystery, and just every season new challenges and new because it's all about the overarching arc of like, where do these troubles come from, who Audrey is, because there's a lot about her past she doesn't know. So like it's a heavily mystery element to it, but I think they do a lot of interesting things in the show. So if you've never checked out the show, I highly recommend you check it out. It's a great show. Next up on the list is the TV show Supernatural. We have Dean and Sam Winchester's brothers who fight the supernatural, which range from your run-of-the-mill supernatural creatures like your vampires, werewolves, and ghosts, while also facing other things you typically wouldn't see in this particular like monster of the week type of show, ranging from like demons, whole angels getting introduced, season 4, as well as like gods, and just there's a lot of different mythical creatures and stuff like that, because obviously this pulls from a lot of folklore and obviously religion and mythology. I've talked about this before when I've talked about this show, but I still believe that this show has one of, if not the largest roster of supernatural creatures. The show is still ongoing. It is currently airing its 14th season, which is so crazy to think that the show's been running that long. But I really like the show, and I think it always does interesting things every season, just like the struggles that the brothers go through. It's got this awesome, like I said, roster of monsters and stuff that they face. Obviously the big focal point of the show too is the brothers' relationship, so I think it's a fun, good time. Has a little bit of a horror element. Show can get quite bloody at times too. So much like Haven, if you are interested in checking out Supernatural, you can actually find all the episodes on Netflix, ranging from season 1 to season 13. Next up on the list is the TV show Teen Wolf, and as the name might imply, this is obviously like a TV show adaptation of like the Teen Wolf movies. But don't let that confuse you, because whereas the movies are more comedy based, this is a lot different. It's a lot more leaning on the horror side of things, and things kind of get bloody and there's death and stuff like that. It's kind of a pretty intense show. Obviously it has little bits of a comedy element, more so than anything. It pushes like obviously mystery and horror. Basically you follow Scott, who ends up getting scratched and turned into a wolf. It's not like kind of like this whole like, ooh, we make kind of a spectacle of it. It's like, no, it's like he keeps it a secret from most of the people he cares about, except for his best friend Styles. Hence Scott and Styles, you kind of see like remnants of like the movies in that regard. There's other like similar elements in that regard, little references to the movies here and there. But more so than anything, it's like they're in a small town known as Beacon, which is known as Beacon because it's like a beacon for the supernatural. And so a cool thing about the show too is like, obviously it's the main focus is werewolves, whereas I feel like most shows typically werewolves are kind of like second, and like it's like, oh, typically it's like, oh, vampires come first, then werewolves. They're kind of tacked on. Like obviously if vampires are there, you're like, okay, werewolves are soon behind. But it's like, this is one of the few shows I can honestly think of, I can only think of really 2 that really focus heavily just solely on werewolves. And they actually made a point, I think the creator of the show was kind of like, oh yeah, we're not going to add any vampires, which they never did. They kind of focus on adding other supernatural creatures as the series progressed. I'm always surprised at like what they were able to do with the show, just like this mystery element of trying to figure out like, oh, who the big baddie is, and it's like how to stop them and what their whole deal is. Like I said, it's just a range of many different genres put together. It's a very great show. The series is complete. It ended last year, so this is kind of a perfect time to jump in if you have never watched any of Teen Wolf, because it's all out there for you to watch. Next up is the TV show Midnight Texas. Now Midnight Texas focuses on this dude named Manfred, who's basically a guy who can see ghosts, and he goes to a town known as Midnight in Texas. Hence the name of the show. Midnight turns out to be kind of like a home for the supernatural and just like a lot of crazy stuff that goes down, and Manfred, who's kind of always been kind of an outsider, kind of finds a home here. It's obviously he has to work on gaining everyone's trust, but still, it's this ever evolving story about like what midnight is and like what it draws, because there are certain things that go down in midnight that have kind of start drawing supernatural forces more and more to it. Obviously, I don't want to get too much into it. Interestingly enough, season 2 recently premiered like a couple days ago. Small town, crazy stuff goes down in it, and it's always interesting to see how everything develops, especially with Manfred's situation, because I feel like it happened. I'm sure there's plenty of stories of it, but it's not something I see a lot where like someone who sees ghosts is like the main front of something, like they're kind of like the leading force. And I'm just so curious to see like, you know, what they continue to do with what he's capable of doing is kind of where my mindset is, but just as well as just like developing this world and this town and just these storylines, especially because the other characters who are their own thing, some human, some being either like a witch or a vampire, an angel, a demon, it ranges all over the place, like what their whole deals are. Like hopefully we kind of dive more into their situations this season as well. So, and finally on the list we have The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix, which if you've not checked out the show, it is a great show. Essentially it's like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, but it's like a horror show, which is such an interesting twist. But to be fair, this show is actually based on a comic book, because I'm not that familiar with the Archie comics and stuff like that, but apparently they do some like crazy stuff with a lot of the Archie comics, because I have my own perception of like, oh, what Archie comics are, but like they do these different runs, and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is one of those runs. But if you've never read the comic book, obviously the show is there for you to enjoy. Part 1 came out a couple days ago. It's fantastic. Like it's got this nice like gory horror supernatural side to it, while also kind of having like this, you know, teen coming of age kind of like storyline to it, you know, just because Sabrina's caught between two worlds, being half witch and being half human, and kind of walking that dividing line where it just seems like everyone's so convinced that this is the path she's supposed to walk, this is the path she has to walk, and she has to try and fight that and walk her own path. But you know, that's not the easiest thing. Like the show goes some crazy places. It does kind of have its own crazy sense of humor too, so it is well worth your time. If you like the show Riverdale, obviously there's a lot of executive producers from the TV show Riverdale in this. Like I said, it kind of got that same tone in a sense of like, it kind of flips your perception of what you could kind of expect from the show, but at the same time I think it goes beyond Riverdale, where Riverdale has like a very nice dark tones, like I've always said, it has that very Twin Peaks vibe. This takes that and just kind of does its own thing, but it still keeps that dark tone. I'd even go as far as saying it even goes darker in many regards. Like I said, I cannot recommend this show enough. Plus, like, it's only 10 episodes, so it's kind of pretty easy to just kind of knock that out. And that is the end of this video. Obviously, these are not the only supernatural TV shows out there. There's actually way more on my list, but I decided just to go with 5 for now. I'll probably do more in the future, so. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.